This video is part of a series helping you to revise for your A-level chemistry exams. Today we're looking at how to build an effective revision timetable for the 2022 exams. If you look in the description below, you'll find a link to the timetable that I'm using here. If you're preparing to take your A-level exams in 2022, then this probably isn't your first time making a revision timetable. But you probably didn't get to use the one that you made ready for the exams in 2020. And the one you made in 2021 might have looked quite different depending on whether your school gave you a full exam series or whether they ran lots of smaller assessments that they then put together to generate your centre assessed grade. There's nothing wrong with that, but it does mean that you've missed out on some of that process of finding out what works for you. Here's an example of what I think is the default for most people when they make a revision timetable. It tends to be hour-long slots with a specific topic, and you just do what it says to do at the time that it says to do it. Now, this can be really effective if you have complete control of your time, say if your school have sent you home and given you study leave. But in my experience, particularly at this point in the year, it has some pitfalls. In February, March, even April, your teachers are probably still providing you with questions and revision tasks that they expect you to complete between lessons. So you might have planned to revise atomic structure, but suddenly your teacher is asking you to do organic chemistry, and there isn't time for both in the same evening. So you have to throw your plan out the window. There also might be other opportunities or events you didn't know about that are going to take up time when you thought you'd be able to revise. Maybe there's a revision class on YouTube, or maybe you've just got rehearsals or training sessions for your other hobbies. It's way too early in the year for you to be giving up all your extracurricular activities and free time. But an unexpected rehearsal or training session can get in the way of the plan that you've made. Sometimes life just gets in the way, like when you miss a bus. And some days, well, most days really, concentrating on one topic for a whole hour is a big ask and is probably not the most efficient way for you to be revising. You want to be breaking things down into smaller chunks, but that gets really hard to timetable. If you're like me, you might end up feeling like once you've missed certain parts of the plan a few times, the whole thing is ruined and there's no point in it anyway. Even if you don't catastrophize like that, a plan like this can easily leave you feeling overwhelmed or anxious or demotivated, and that's not a good mental state to be in when you're trying to revise and, live. But what's the alternative? For the last few years, I recommended revision plans like this one, and you can download mine in the description below. The idea behind this plan is that there is no plan. You start with an idea of how much time you can commit, whether that's an hour an evening or something else, and then what you're doing is keeping a record of what you've revised. So the point of this is to ensure that you weight your revision towards the most important topics and that you're still covering everything, rather than planning to do a certain topic on a certain day. Because in 2022 we know which ones are the major topics, what I've done is added an extra line for every paper that a topic appears in. So atomic structure is just in AQA Chemistry Paper 1 this year, but amount of substance is in all 3 papers, so it gets extra revision time. If you haven't already watched my video explaining why you need to keep revising topics like energetics and kinetics, then click the link. But essentially just make sure that you are keeping them as being part of your revision plan. I tend to work on the basis that each box is 20 minutes. That means that this grid is probably too big for you to realistically fill in the time you have left, but it enables you to keep track of how well spread your revision is and hopefully ensure that you're covering everything to the right amount of depth. So let's say on the first day of my revision, I revise atomic structure, and I just write into the box the date when I did that. And that's one little 20-minute slot, so that could be some flashcards or some exam questions or whatever it is. And then I'm also going to write in the other 20-minute slots I do on a couple of other topics. Then let's say the next day, my teacher gives me a whole load of amount of substance exam questions to do. Well, that's okay. It takes me an hour, so I fill in 3 different slots in the amount of substance boxes. You might also find that it's useful to add particular strategies at the top, like YouTube videos or an app like Seneca or exam questions or flashcards. I always do this with GCSE revision timetables because I find it's often useful to have a variety of different revision tasks, but by this point you might find a particular way of revising works really well for you. So I've left this space at the top blank so that you can fill it in if you want to, or leave it blank if you just always want to revise in the same way. Hopefully you found that a useful suggestion for one way to structure your revision for the A-level exams this year. If you have found this useful, then don't forget to like and subscribe for more A-level chemistry videos coming soon.